Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how you doing today?
I'm doing exceptionally well, Joe. Sorry, you guys. I'm dueling it here with my phone and our laptop. Yeah, don't ask me. If you have 13-year-olds, you'll know what I mean. So we are getting ready to head off to Whistler this week. So I am extremely excited, yet anxious at the same time to cross the border and all the special things you have to do to time that properly, including time COVID tests and all that other stuff. So right after this, I'm going to go pull the girls out of school and we're going to get a COVID test so we can have that within 72 hours of trying to cross the border.
Very cool. Did you figure out if there was anything interesting to get back into the United States after that?
I am told that there is, you just come. They don't even ask for anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, my bigger concern is this trucking thing, how they're blocking, the truckers are pissed and blocking the Canadian border towns and stuff like that. There's been a little activity, I think, up towards Blaine, but hopefully we'll be okay. So
yeah, cool. Hopefully
next podcast, I guess.
Right. Yeah. If you're doing the podcast from Canada, then we'll know what happened.
We'll know, right? Exactly. What are you guys up to? Where are you at?
Oh man, Julie. So we're in Steamboat Springs, which is awesome because that's where we like to spend our Februarys because they have super awesome snow, but they haven't had any snow for like 2 weeks before we got here. So we haven't even been to the mountain yet.
Oh my gosh.
So dry.
That sucks. Well, we went to Stevens last weekend for a Bluebird Day and probably the last day of snow that was reasonable. But it's going to, luckily, while we go to Whistler, it's supposed to be snow showers, 50 chance every day we're there.
Yes.
Beep, beep.
Get it.
Yeah. So everybody's excited. But what we are really excited about today is to introduce you to our new friend, Ryan Chaw. He is an investor as well as a guy that is full-time job, or I guess part-time is what he said, as a pharmacist. So that's pretty interesting. As I was telling Ryan, my dad owned a pharmacy for like 40 years down in California. So little sweet spot here for Ryan today. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm honored to be on the podcast, Julie and Joe.
Yeah, how did you actually find us? I think you reached out to us. How did that happen?
Yeah, so a podcast kind of gets suggested on the feed, so I just clicked on yours.
Right on.
Cool.
Oh, well, good stuff. Well, here we are. The magic of how the world works today. Well, let's do it, Joe. Kick it off and let's get to know Ryan better and jump into his story and what he's all about. And we are excited to hear from him.
Yeah, Ryan, we'd love to get to know you from A to Z. So like how you grew up, where you grew up, and how it led you to not only the career you're in, but then the transition into adding real estate to that.
Yeah, so I'm actually a California investor. I first got started out, or actually I was first interested in real estate from my grandpa. He bought a couple of properties back in the 50s when they were dirt cheap. As we all know, the housing market boomed, rents went up. He was able to not only cover his own expenses, living expenses, but also able to help cover part of my college tuition and that of my brothers as well. So that's when I realized that real estate is one of the best ways to create generational wealth. And so I basically graduated with my pharmacy degree back in 2015, and I wanted to get started as soon as possible. I actually started working as a pharmacist at a hospital, and I had this boss who he didn't like me for some reason. He started sending me these like nasty emails and micromanaging me and like looking at the cameras to see what I was doing and everything. Long story short, I had to file a harassment claim and I ended up winning. But I realized that I didn't want my income and my financial security to just depend on one person, how one person views me, right? So I wanted to create a life of financial freedom, that term that everyone uses, but I wanted to create a life where I live on my own terms so I can basically be able to do what I want, where I want, with whomever I want to do with and just have more flexibility in my life and schedule as well. So as Julie mentioned, I actually worked as a full-time pharmacist at first. I actually worked a lot overtime as well. And then I cut back down to part-time because real estate was able to cover basically that income I would have wouldn't have made by working part-time versus full-time. So I bought one property a year. I used a very simple formula, bought one single family home a year, and I rented out by the bedroom to local college students. And this was great because anywhere I can add like one or two extra bedrooms, that's an extra $600 to $1,400, $1,500 in rental income I could be making. So I was actually boosting my rental income by an average of $1,000 to $1,500 per house. And then I just, again, bought one a year, and now I'm at 6 properties, and it's making $17,580 per month in rental income.
Nice. And so why do you keep the job at this point? Just to help qualify for the loans and stuff, or what?
Exactly. So that's one great reason is I still have a couple more properties I can buy under conventional financing. And to take advantage of that or to get the best rates for that, it's important to have like a W-2 job because it really helps with getting qualified, as you mentioned. But the other thing is I do like my job as a pharmacist. And, I've been working for 5 years. I see myself working for maybe another 1 or 2 or so, and then maybe cutting back to like 1 or 2 days a week. At that point, I reached a stage where I can choose whether I want to work so many hours or not, right? But I do love like working and helping people at the hospital. It's always been one of my goals to build a career that's based off of service and helping people.
Well, boy, you sure have an audience there with the doctors and maybe some of the nurses and all that stuff. The traveling nurse crash pad thing is kind of a cool thing you could try as well. But, you might get to the point where you start buying apartment buildings or something. And there you have a bunch of doctors as your partners or private lenders or, raising some money. That's, have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, actually, I just had a discussion with one of my physicians friends at the hospital, and he said, yeah, I'd be down to basically help put down payments on houses so that we can, we can scale the portfolio. And then what I will do is promise him debt. So you can either promise debt or equity. So debt, I would pay him like 8% interest over time. So debt is basically interest. Equity means I give him a certain percentage of the property itself. So a certain percentage equity. So I'm kind of playing with that. I'm thinking of offering like 8% interest plus maybe a 1.5% royalty on the property that they can cash out at any time.
Nice. Well, let's wind it back a bit. And so you got the idea after your boss was hassling you a bit. And you thought, okay, I got to come up with a plan B here so I don't have to rely on this type of stuff where people have a little control or involved in my stuff. How did you start learning about real estate? Just where did you go to learn? I know you had your uncle, but you took on, the boarding house style. What was your resources to start learning about that?
To be honest, I kind of just dived in myself. I actually didn't read any books beforehand. And I later realized that was a bit of a mistake because I ended up losing a lot of money on my first property. It was like 100-year-old house, and I had to replace so many parts of it. Actually, just to give you an example, the tenant called me up at like 11 p.m. on the weekend one night, and he said there's sewage that's spurting out of the kitchen sink, and it's all over the kitchen floor. It's backing out into the showers too, and it's all over the bathroom floor too. So I had to call up somebody and try to find somebody to sanitize it like 11 p.m. on the weekend, and no one would pick up, right? So eventually I found someone, and of course they charged premium rate. And then finally they stuck a camera down the sewage line, and they found out the whole line had roots sticking into it. And so the whole line had to be replaced, and it cost about like $9,000 for that. And not only that, I had to replace the AC system because there was basically no AC at the house. It wasn't replaced since basically they owned the house back in like 1920 or something like this. So my first lesson that I learned is when I buy 100-year-old houses to at least do my due diligence, like do a sewage lateral line inspection, get the HVAC inspection, just make sure everything's kind of up to date for something like that. And I try to stay away from older houses as well.
So how did you, so we're going to back it up then. So you decide, okay, I'm going to do this. Now you had to go find a house to buy. Did you use an agent? Did you buy a house off of a friend? How did you find that first house, and who helped you get it? Or did you just do it all on your own? Because I'm a real estate broker, and listening to your story of your first experience there, I was thinking, boy, what a terrible agent he must have had to not have checked the sewer line prior to purchase. But tell us how you came about getting your first property.
Yeah, so I actually did use an agent. So I did a lot of research, cross-referenced him. I actually found him on Yelp initially, and I read the reviews and said, "Hey, he has really good market experience. He has connections to all the local agents, and he has connections to buyers off market as well." So I was like, "Okay, why don't I just go with this guy?" And this guy actually ended up teaching me a lot, even though he didn't recommend to do the line inspection or the sewage line inspection and all of that. I mean, it wasn't really part of his job necessarily because that's something you add on to the normal home inspection if you want it. And not everyone knows to do that, but that's definitely something I would recommend. But he actually kind of held my hand through the process.
I 1,000% disagree with what you just said, by the way, as a real estate broker myself. Not to say that. I think every agent knows, any agent worth their salt should know, especially at a house that age, that they're going to recommend not only that you do an inspection, but that inspection is going to include a sewer scope. But I digress. Don't get me on my soapbox there. So that's good, though. For you to go fall forward, maybe it's a big blessing in disguise, right? That all happened. So was that a listed house or was it off market?
This one was a listed house, but this agent was able to get me 2 houses that were off market. And I went with the same guy because he does a very good job negotiating the deal and really sticking up for the buyer. But actually, what's really cool about the first house, now that you mention it, is even though I lost over $30,000 on the first house, the house appreciated $162,000. So even though I lost a ton of money at first, the real estate's a very forgiving field. I was able to just make up more than 4 times that amount just in appreciation. And that's partly because I buy in, great areas in California, near colleges, near high-end hospitals, but also, just the fact that real estate is kind of an appreciating market.
It is right now, but I caution you, if you haven't lived through what happened in, 2008 and that time frame, don't rely on that. You get what I'm saying, right? I mean,
yeah, definitely.
That's what the market has been since you got started in it. That's not necessarily what the market is going to stay at all the time. So I imagine you're, understanding that at this point. So cool. So why did you lose $30,000? Was it all related to that sewer, or do you still own that property, or did you sell it?
No, I do own it still. So it was actually, the sewage line was like $9,000. The HVAC that we put in mini splits. So that actually cost about $18,000. I also put in extra bedrooms. So what was cool is I kind of made a deal with my dad because first off, I owed like $23,000 and I only had like $7,000 in the bank. So I'm like, okay, what do? I owe more than I have in the bank. So I said, hey, I went to my dad and said, hey, if you fund the $23,000, what I'll do is part of that money will go towards putting in an extra bedroom, and you'll get that bedroom's rent per month for the rest of your life. So basically he gets paid back in 3 years, a little less than 3 years. And after that, he makes like a 27% return on his investment or something like that. It's pretty crazy. So it just kind of makes sense for both of us.
That's a bit of an interesting thing that you just said there. That is a little bit interesting. Guys, everybody, are you listening to this? This is somewhat interesting that you could bring on lenders, private lenders for boarding house style properties. And like you said, maybe they get paid on one of the rooms. And you, as the person putting together and finding the deal, maybe they get paid 80% of that money, or however anybody wants to set it up. And you, as I don't want to use the word syndicator, you as the person that found the deal and maybe is managing the deal, you get the cut of the appreciation, the big appreciation cut, and some of the cash flow cut. There's something interesting there, what you just said. Have you done that beyond this deal with your dad?
No, but that kind of inspired me to start bringing on other investors, like you mentioned. So this year, I plan to do kind of create an LP limited partnership and then start bringing on other partners. And potentially also doing like owner financing type deals as well. So getting a little bit creative and not the goal is to eventually get to a stage where you're not using you're using other people's money rather than money from your own pocket. And that's what the people who have really scaled have been able to do it. That's how they've been able to do it because they don't have a limit because they just need to bring in more and more partners to purchase real estate rather than being capped at how much capital they have in their pocket.
Well, let me give you another idea to help you out on that. Do you know what cross collateralizing is?
Yeah, I think that's like when you take like a loan that covers all of your houses out and use that towards the down payment on a house. Or when you go to get a loan, you can basically offer your house up as collateral.
Well, Joe's going to drop, for those of you that are listening, we're going to remind you about our friends at Flynn Family Lending. And Joe will drop some of the podcasts that we've done with Beth Johnson and her team. I don't know that they lend in California, but you could listen to those podcasts and you could find a lender that will go in second position and cross-collateralize basically some of your properties where you can take the equity out of some of your existing properties that you are saying have appreciated so much, and you will be limited to a maximum loan to value so you won't hurt yourself. But if you have excess equity laying around, you can use that equity, pull it out, and use that as down payment to scale. And that's how we do it here in the Pacific Northwest. So you can contact Flynn Family Lending to see if they loan in California. I don't recall if they do or not, but they might have a referral of somebody in California. Or you might ask our friends at Certain Lending, who we love, if they have any contacts that do private lending for cross-collateralizing in California, because they are our, favorite hard money lender that is pretty much national. So they have a lot of relationships around the country. But yeah, boy, that's something interesting. I think my favorite part of our discussion so far is kind of the light bulb idea of, is there a way to structure deals with private financing, private lending attached to the boarding house style in regards to somebody getting paid off of, like you said, by the room? They essentially lend on one of the rooms and kind of structure something that way. That's interesting. Well, let's keep going here. So that was your first deal. You still own it. And I assume that it's cash flowing. Let me ask you though, why did you know going into that deal that you were going to do the boarding house style college town type stuff?
No, actually, I didn't. I mean, I had the idea to rent it out to students, but I didn't know to really maximize the number of bedrooms and really cater towards students. I kind of just bought the house originally, expecting to maybe bring in some college tenants, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Either college tenants or young professionals. But I found that usually grad students work very well, especially if you have like a pharmacy school or dental school. I bring in like pharmacy, dental school students and MDs, nurses, all that type of picture. And actually the very first house, I didn't even add that fourth bedroom until like 3 years down the road. And I realized that mistake. I actually lost out on, I think, about $28,000 just by not adding that extra bedroom.
How did you add the extra bedroom? Did you like take the living room space, or how did you do it?
Yes. So some houses, they'll have like an extra family room or an office or something. And students, they only need like one common area, a dining/living area is what I found. So this one had a very large living room. And so what I was able to do is actually kind of basically divide that room in half. Half of it becomes the fourth bedroom and the other half remains the common area. And that worked out very well. I haven't had any complaints about that because students, when they're staying on the on-campus dormitories, they're like bunking with their roommates.
Yeah. Didn't we just do a podcast recently with Pad Split, Joe?
Yep, absolutely. That should be dropping here pretty soon this week, actually.
Yeah. Oh, you guys don't even know about this. I guess you will by the time you hear this, but maybe attach that one to this podcast as well. But Ryan, yeah, there's a group out there called Pad Split that, essentially does that. We did a podcast with them a few weeks ago. You should check them out as well.
Hey guys, it's Julie here with a quick break from the show to discuss an opportunity some of you may have interest in, which is to work more closely with me. On almost a daily basis, I get calls from investors and brokers, both new and experienced, asking me for guidance or advice. I love helping you guys out, and it keeps me on my toes too. So with that said, I wanted to let you know that I have a private broker coaching community called the VIP Education Community. And the best part is that it's 100% free. That's right, it's free to join. So whether you're a traditional broker or a broker investor, my VIP education community offers personalized one-on-one coaching from not just me, but also from my experienced broker friends with expertise in all disciplines of real estate and real estate investing. We'll teach and share our modern marketing strategies, our tech and lead generation resources, plus teach you how to identify or offer up opportunities for yourself or for your clients using techniques such as seller financing, lease options, land entitlement deals, BRRRR investing, flipping, multifamily or commercial coaching, whatever you like. We've got it all covered for you. The future of real estate is changing fast, and to stay in the game, it's time to learn about all the options you can offer your buyer and seller clients, as well as, if you want, learn how to use those skills to grow your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like more details about joining my VIP education community, reach out to me at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com or text me at 206-910-2985 or just send me a Facebook message. My new favorite phrase is community equals confidence. So let's navigate the future of real estate together. Now, back to the show.
So what'd you do then? Now you figured, oh, this is a great deal. Maybe you bought the wrong house to do it in. I don't know. But what happened after that? How did you go to property number two?
Yeah, so I started realizing that the more bedrooms I could add at the house, obviously the more cash flow I could be making. So if I can add like 5 bedrooms at a house and charge $600 per bedroom, that's at least $3,000 per month in rental income. My highest house makes I would say, it's actually $3,650 per month in rental income. So the one that I'm living in is actually making the most in rental income. So I'm living in, this is my 6th property. And I basically copied the model. I made the model and then I copied it over and over and over to scale. And it's a lot easier to copy and do the 2nd, 3rd, 4th house because you already have everything set up on your first house and you have the same network of contractors, agents, etc. So it's so much easier to scale. But yeah, this 6th property, I actually put in a 5th bedroom. I rented out the largest room to a couple for $1,160, and then the others are paying $810, $850, and $870, I believe, or $830 and $870. And then I'm basically also living in the master bedroom for free because my mortgage is only $2,300.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So when you go to finance these properties, though, what's your experience? Have you tried to refinance any of these properties yet?
Yeah, I actually did. I refinanced 2 of them. So one of them I did a actual refinance. I didn't do a cash out, but I just refinanced at a lower rate because it was like 4.8 and I got it down to, I think, 2.125 or something like that. And then another one, I ended up taking out a HELOC on it. So what I did is, so HELOC is basically a home equity line of credit. It's kind of like you were mentioning, another company will take a junior loan position on the property and lend out to usually 80% loan to value. So let's say, you have like 100,000 in equity built up on that property. Some of that equity you can probably take out using a HELOC. And that equity is what's really great about the HELOC is you can use that equity to put a down payment on another property. So when my first property went up $162,000, I was able to take $100,000 HELOC out, and I used that to purchase my fourth and fifth property. And so basically, when I first bought the first house, it bought me 3 properties with the cash that I had put on that first house. Nothing else from my pocket.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, what have you learned from the first property to your sixth property? What have you changed?
Yeah. So the first thing I learned was make sure not to buy 100-year-old houses. Also, of course, location is very important in real estate. It's almost everything. So I try to invest within a 5 to 7 minute driving distance or 5 to 7 minute walking distance of campus, because when students wake up for their 8 a.m. classes, they're not going to want to have to commute like 10 minutes to get there, right? They want to get as much sleep as possible, students, right? The other thing I look for is really large square footage houses. So anything over 1,200 square foot can be usually made into a 4th bedroom, depending on the layout, if the bathrooms have the most square footage or where the square footage is allocated, basically. And then over 1,500 square foot, you can make it into a 5-bedroom house, sometimes even a 6-bedroom house. So I look for houses that are usually 1,400, 1,500 square foot or more, because those are the ones where I can really add 1, 2, maybe even 3 extra bedrooms. And then it'll allow me to, increase the cash flow, but also allow more students to live at the house and save money on rent, because we're only charging half of what on campus is charging. So we're actually kind of helping them decrease their student loans.
What about the bathroom situation?
Yeah, so I always want to maintain a 3-to-1 ratio. So I'll never buy a house that doesn't have a second bathroom. So 3-to-1, meaning 3 people to 1 bathroom. So if you have like 2 shared bathrooms, I can go up to like 6 people. If we have 1 shared bathroom and 1 private bathroom, then we could go up to 4 people, which is basically 3 sharing 1 and then 1 being private.
So are you buying houses that you're renovating, or what condition are the houses?
They're usually great condition. I don't try to do the whole flip and BRRRR type deal. I am kind of using BRRRR in a way when I take out equity on the property that's built up. But for the most part, I'm not going to flip it and renovate it and all of that part of the BRRRR. And the reason why is because if it takes like 6 months to renovate, every month that I take to renovate the property is a potential loss of $2,500 to $3,000 per month, or $3,500, $3,650 per month. So 3,000 times 6 is $18,000 you're already throwing away by having to do a 6-month renovation type deal. But with that being said, it's a great model. I just didn't feel it necessary to combine both the student housing model with the BRRRR method, because the student housing model makes a lot of cash flow. And I'd rather just do that than having to take on this large renovation project to create equity on my property. Plus, I invest in California. So tell us
how the numbers work, because you are in California where it's expensive. So give us an example of the numbers of your purchase price, your loan amount that you're able to achieve, and how the numbers work on, let's just say, is your last deal the best deal? Give us not one of the ones that you feel is your best deal, and what's your worst deal and your best deal on the numbers?
Yeah, so let's see. The worst deal is probably something like buying a 300, like my second house I bought for 330,000 or something like this. And then the mortgage.
What city are you in doing this?
Oh, Stockton and Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah. So 330,000, and then I made like $2,500 per month in rental income. So it's still not a bad deal. If I did a 15-year on that, I think it was like $2,200 per month in rental income, or in the mortgage payment. But if I were to do like a 30-year on that, it'd be more like $1,300, somewhere between $1,300 and $1,500 per month. So the cash flow would be still $1,000, about $1,000 or more. So that's like the worst deal. The best deal is this current one. This one's a little bit more expensive, but because I live in it, I could put a lower down payment. It was $511,000. I was able to, live in it, put a lower down payment, and get my mortgage is about $2,300 per month, and my rental income on this is $3,650 per month. So not only am I living in it, but I'm also making $1,300 minus expenses per month in cash flow. If I were to move out, I would be making about $4,500 in rental income on this house by renting out the master bedroom for $900. Another, my very first deal.
But what's your net? You have some expenses related to that.
Yeah, so I usually, yeah. Expenses are usually about $3,000 a year for me, anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 per year. I actually have a spreadsheet with all this
per house.
So yeah, per house. So that's like $300 per month,
including taxes.
Yeah. So yeah, the mortgage includes the property taxes and insurance. And then my expenses, I would say after like all the renovations, so not including the capital expenditures, but like per year, just to maintain the house, it's about anywhere from like $200 to $500 per month.
Gotcha. And how's it going with repairs or with, managing those houses?
Yeah. So nowadays I actually do my due diligence inspection. So anything that's found on the home inspection, let's say there's some potential water damage on the ceiling. Well, where does water damage on the ceiling come from? Most likely from like a roof leak that might have happened in the past or as a current leak. And so I kind of look more into it now. So I'm like, why is that there? Right. So I'll do like a roof inspection. I might add on the sewage lateral line inspection. I might add on the HVAC inspection, all that type of stuff. And, I also test the house when I go into it. I'll turn it on and off all the light switches, test the chargers with my phone charger. I'll test the showers and the sinks for hot water, flush all the toilets, just making sure everything's in working condition. And if something isn't, I'll spot that and say, hey, what's going on here? And then if there's a repair that needs to be made, at that point, I can go ahead and go to the seller and say, hey, we're finding all these repairs that need to be made, and I'm going to have to pay for this if I were to close on the house. Are you able to put up some money to pay for getting your house into good condition, right?
And that's working for you in your market? It's not competitive? It's not so competitive?
Mm-hmm. And what's more is I was actually able to get some properties off market as well, because again, my real estate agent, he has connections with the local area. So he will sell it to me before he even puts it on the rest of the market if it meets my parameters. So basically, he just emails me or texts me and say, hey, this property meets everything that you're currently looking for, a large square footage house, very close to campus, that type of deal, not too old, all that stuff. And he said, I'll sell it to you off market if you want to go ahead and have first jump on it. And what's great is he gets the commission on both ends if he does that. He gets he gets the seller's commission and the buyer's commission. So for him, it makes sense to not list it on the MLS and just get the full commission there.
Yeah. And I'll just say for the record, though, just say, but is that right for the seller, right? Does the seller give it? Not that that's your issue because he's bringing it to, I just want to make sure that we know that we want to take care of the sellers these days too. So you know what I'm saying, guys. So I'm curious though, how many properties have you bought on market versus off?
So 2 off market and then 4 on market.
4 on market. And you are down in Stockton and Sacramento, and there is not super competition down there where people are making offers, pre-inspecting, not asking for repairs and all that. You're buying these properties asking for repairs, and are you paying over the list price? You're paying the list price? What's the scoop there?
Yeah, so it sounds kind of surprising to hear. I totally understand that. But for the most part, if you have the right timing for some of the houses and you know what you're looking for, there's always going to be a deal that pops up. So I'm very clear at what I'm looking for. I want a house that's as close to campus as possible and, certain square footage. And I'm willing to pay up to this amount because of the cash flow makes sense. So even though this property was $511,000, and I had to put, 10% down payment or whatever, I still make a lot of cash flow because, again, I rent it out per bedroom. And so I'm able to afford a house at a higher price than somebody who's trying to start a family would, right?
Are you saying that you can pay more for the same house? So you're beating the competition because you're offering a premium based on your calculations
Yes,
of your business
sometimes
model?
that is a strategy I end up using. But with that being said, again, working my W-2 job, and especially at the beginning when I was working a lot of overtime, I was qualified for a very, very high amount. And so getting that pre-approval letter for being qualified for a high amount shows that I can easily afford to, make the payments on this. And plus, also, because of the cash flow I'm making on my past houses, I was able to use 75% of that income as well to qualify. Having that pre-approval allowed me to actually, even though there were like 3 offers on the property, I got the property for even less lower price than the other offers because it's clear that I can close on this house and you won't have to deal with loan issues. Plus, I also closed on the other 4 or 5 houses or whatever. And so I kind of have a little bit of a track record, and the agent knows to talk with the other agent and say, hey, this guy's your best bet because he's going to close on this house no matter what.
Gotcha. Awesome. So what are your exact parameters? How do you decide what's your quick and dirty on your math? We know you're looking for a certain size property. Mm-hmm. You know that you're going to get your $850 maybe per bedroom or whatever you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. What type of returns, or how are you calculating that?
Yeah, so I usually aim for at least an 8 or 9% cap rate, at least whenever possible. And then
cap rate or cash on cash return?
In cash on cash return, I usually do around 12% or more. But I would say my highest house is around in the 20% cash on cash return. My lowest house maybe around 12% cash on cash return. So those are kind of the things I shoot for. Again, wherever I can add an extra bedroom, if I could get a 5th or 6th bedroom in there, the cash on cash return goes, skyrockets because that's an extra, $600 to $800 per month in each bedroom I can add.
So I imagine that Stockton or Sacramento, where you're doing this, there aren't any rules or laws against any of that.
Luckily, no, but that's a very important part of this. So you have to check your municipal codes. And then I would call up the city planning division to make sure that this is allowed in your city. Some cities have a cap on how many unrelated individuals that can be allowed at a house. So some of them will cap it at 4, 5, some even cap it at 2. So you really can't use the model in those types of cities, or, you're taking on a bit of a risk if you were to do that, obviously. So that's very important. Luckily for my city, what I had to do, and I talked to the guy at the planning division and got the names and everything. And he said, hey, if you get the city business license, you're allowed to have multiple tenants at a house. You can have multiple leases at a house, all that type of legal, as long as you have the city business license. And I think I had to pay only $100 or something like that to get that license. So it wasn't too bad, but it'll depend on your city or your county actually. So you want to call up your county planning division.
How are you writing your leases then? What are the terms of your leases? Since you're talking about students, are they 12-month leases or what?
Yeah. So what's cool is already the students are saving so much more money by doing $600 per month versus $1,200 per month. So they're okay signing 12-year leases or 12-month leases. Sorry. And what I do is I go up to them and say, hey, during the time you're not there, like during the summer, for instance, I can help you try to find a subletter. It is still technically your responsibility to find a subletter, but I can help do some advertising to help find some summer school students. And every year there's always summer school students, right? So we haven't had any trouble finding subletters during the summer, and that's what I tell them. And usually at my scale, what's really cool is I can rely on a referral system now. And what I mean by that is I have 28 tenants now. Each one of my 28 tenants knows maybe 5 friends, right? And if you multiply 28 by 5, that's 140 potential people who want to stay at your house, right? What you just ask them is say, hey, do you know anybody who would want a room at the same house with you? Maybe some friends or whatever you want to bring in. And a lot of times, some of them will have a group of 3 or 4 guys or girls. And so they just, sublet to them or bring those in.
Have you had to evict anybody?
No, that's the great part about this model. Obviously, it's the parents paying the rent, and it's the students living there. So no parent is going to stop paying the rent and risk their child being evicted from where they're staying at in college. Usually they love their kids enough not to do that, right? So I haven't had to deal with eviction issues. I did have, during COVID, I had students who wanted to leave early. And the story there is actually the schools, COVID first hit, the schools shut down and went to online. So there were several people who asked me, hey, can I get off the lease, right? And so what I did is I contacted each one of them individually and said, hey, if I give you like $100 discount, first off, I only contacted people who want to leave, right? So the ones who want to leave, I'll say, if I give $100 discount, are you okay still staying there? Because you have more privacy than maybe staying at your parents' house. It's a better study environment. You could probably still study with your friends and everything. And a lot of them saw that as an advantage. They still want to stay at $100 discount and be able to study with their friends and not have the chaos at their parents' place, right? So I did that, but I also reached out to people who are interested and actually called them up and asked them, hey, do you have any questions or concerns about the house before, potentially going forward with renting at this house? And that kind of added that personal touch, that human touch. And they realized that, oh, this is not just some, nameless property management company. This is a real guy who cares about me and me being comfortable at the house. In fact, I had some, because I graduated from that same pharmacy school, I had some pharmacy school students who asked me, hey, what do you recommend to get a, good job in pharmacy? What do you recommend? Also, what clubs should I join? What organizations? How do I, start getting into leadership roles? And I can, give them tips as well and kind of give back. And that was also a huge plus at living my properties. They kind of got to ask me those types of questions, and I'm happy to help them out. Yeah.
Sounds like you've created a nice little system for yourself down there. Yeah, you should join us sometime on a Thursday. Every Thursday we have a meetup. And we actually have another guy, our friend Dante, who is down in LA, and he is doing the same thing that you're doing. He's doing the boarding house style rentals down there, looking for the big houses, and it'd be nice for you guys to meet, just to talk shop in front of us all. You're welcome to join us. We meet from 11:30 to 12:30 every single Thursday on Zoom. You can all find that by just going to meetup.com, searching for Seattle Investors Club, and clicking that link, and you can copy and paste that into your calendar for Thursdays 11:30 to 12:30, because the link never changes. And you can come hang out with us, and we can talk more about this kind of stuff and introduce you. We know people that are also doing this business model up here in Seattle. The guy's a doctor, in fact. Our friend Bob is using this model down over here. So good stuff. Yeah. Well, good, Ryan. Any other tips that you want to give us before we wrap it up today?
I can give you the PRIME method. So that's PRIME. It stands for a method for finding high quality tenants, prime tenants. So the P stands for placement of advertising. And so it's really important to place your ad where your target market hangs out. So for students, it might be school bulletin boards, Starbucks, or online on Facebook housing groups, or Facebook campus groups, right? And so if you don't, for example, if you don't put it in the right place, like I just put a for rent sign on my lawn, I was not getting any students calling me, right? Because it's like fishing in an empty pond if you put your ad in a place that they're not even hanging out at, right? R stands for reviewing social media. So once they contact me, do email or Facebook or whatever, I'll review their Facebook profile, Instagram, or whatever I can see. And I'll look for things like smoking, drugs, raves, that type of thing. What type of tenant are they? And then I stands for identifying the type of tenant. So is this someone who's very difficult to communicate with? Do they get angry very easily? Are they asking for cheaper rent constantly? What kind of person are they essentially? M stands for measuring responsiveness. So the more responsive the person is in getting back their paperwork to me and everything, I find the more responsible they are down the road. So if I ask someone and say, hey, your rent is late, I don't want them, spending waiting 2 weeks before getting back to me. I want somebody who's very responsive. E stands for ensuring proof of income. So it's actually the parents paying the rent usually. So what I'll do is get the bank statements or credit score from the parents. Other ways are student loans, if they're taking out student loan to pay for room and board, or financial aid. And so students have access to a lot of ways to make sure to pay, being able to pay the rent. And so that's the prime method.
Awesome. So you're going to stay sticking down to Stockton and just continue to build your portfolio. What else you got? You got any plans to do anything else with your real estate, or are you going to stick to the bread and butter? Are you going to start buying apartment buildings or something?
Yeah, so I have a strong belief that once you have a model that works, you should just copy that model to scale it. Because, I first started off with only like $2,500 in rental income per month. Now I scaled it to $17,580. To be honest, I could probably scale it to $50,000 or $70,000 within the next 10 years if I really wanted to do that. Because again, you can get a little bit more creative with the financing and all of that. Eventually you reach a DTI ceiling, but then there's, then you can start going to portfolio lenders and private equity, like you guys were mentioning. So I'm really focused on just doing this model because I love working with students. I was a student myself not too long ago. I can help them out. I believe if you treat your tenants well, they'll treat you. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you, right? So I'm basically going to be scaling this in some of my local cities, but eventually I'm going to probably be moving to out of state as well, which has higher cash flow, but definitely lower appreciation, just to kind of diversify.
And how are you collecting the rent? Are you using?
Zelle is a really great app because it tells you it's basically a direct deposit, and it tells you exactly when they pay it, who paid and everything. So it's very easy to keep track of Zelle. I do allow checks, but I highly recommend just using Zelle for my tenants. Another software you can use, some of the people that I kind of teach this method to, is called the Tenant Cloud. And what you could do is, I'm not affiliated with them or anything, but what's cool is they actually tell the tenants when they're late on rent, and it'll automatically charge a fee to them as well to pay it. So that's a software. If you guys really want to start automating things, they do that. They also, you can put in, the tenants can put in what repairs need to be made into the system. And then the system will send the contractor a message and say, hey, can you go ahead and get this repaired? So it makes it easier to automate everything.
Good stuff. All good stuff. Well, all right. Yeah. I'd love to introduce you to Dante sometime and continue the conversation maybe on a Thursday if you're ever available. But we will wrap it up now because I got a guy coming to repair my my expansion tanks on my boiler here in my house.
Nice.
So little maintenance on the pad here. So Ryan, thanks again for joining us today. And Joe, where can everybody find the details? Or what if people have questions and want to, hey, reach out to you? Are you open to that, Ryan? And
yeah, definitely. If you guys are interested in the student housing strategy and exactly how I did it, I actually have a newsletter where I go through the strategies that I use to build this, multiple six-figure rental portfolio. And you can get that at it's a free guide at www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide. That's www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide. And newbie is spelled NEWBIE.
Cool. Joe can drop that down here in the podcast notes as well. Well, good stuff. Good stuff, Ryan. Speaking of, where can everybody find the details of today's podcast, Joe?
Yeah, awesome stuff, guys. You can get to all the show notes by going to SeattleInvestorsClub.com/158. That's SeattleInvestorsClub.com/158. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just scroll down to the notes below, and we've got all the links and everything that we've mentioned today.
Good stuff, guys. And if you like our content and continue to enjoy what we're putting out, we're very picky about who we let on. Please give us a like, a subscribe, smash it, whatever they say. Whatever you can do to help us out. Give us a 5-star review. Anything we can do would be great. Anything you can do to help us out. All right. I look forward to seeing you guys all the next time I see you, which is after my trip to Whistler. So over and out for today, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.